cloud. Okay, it says that we are being recorded now. Okay, so Simple Start is the lowest version of QuickBooks Online, and it's $30 a month. And so you could pay for the whole year at one time if you wanted to. That will get you a discount, or you can use this hyperlink that's up here at the top. Let me see if I can post this in the chat. Let me grab this, Control C. Let me come down here into the chat and let me paste this. That will get you 30% off for the first year. And then it would go to the normal price of $30 a month. Or if you went for the essentials, would be $60 a month. When it says users, that's how many people can be in the QuickBooks Online at the very same time. So you could have 3 users logged into QuickBooks Online Essentials at the very same time working together. On Simple Start, you can have only 1 user. But the selling point of the Essentials version is that you includes accounts payable to manage and pay bills. Now you can, in the Simple Start, you don't have that, but you can still pay bills. You can still write checks and you can pay people, but in accounts payable means that as soon as the bill comes in, I could enter it into QuickBooks. I could enter the bill in, and then at some point, all those bills are just sitting in an area, and you can say, well, today I'm ready to go pay some bills. And when you click on pay bills, you can see all the bills that you've entered and you could pay them. To do that with Simple Start, you wouldn't be able to enter them in as they come in, but you could just put them in a folder and then say, today on Fridays, we're going to pay bills. And you get your folder out and you just pay them one after one. The Plus version includes inventory and job costing. If you're like real serious about your business, that you really want to analyze your business and see how your business is doing, there's these features in QuickBooks Online called classes, projects, and locations that you can job cost, that you can see how a certain thing is working. So by using these different things. And then the most expensive version is the advanced version, which is pretty expensive. And so that would be where you have customized user roles and you can batch enter transactions and stuff. So most people are just using one of the smaller levels, either the Simple Start or the Essentials. I would say the big deciding factor is like how many people need to be working in QuickBooks at the same time. Do you need 3 people? Do you need 5 people? All right, so I'm going to show you, and we're going to go into like a sample QuickBooks Online company so you can see what it looks like. So I'm going to go and open up a browser. I'm going to drag the browser up here so you can see it. And I'm going to go into an incognito window, so I'm not pulling anything. So I'm going to google.com, and you can do this if you want to just play around with QuickBooks Online, you just Google and you say Google QuickBooks Online test drive. If you Google that, QuickBooks Online test drive, when you do that, I can see it's the second one right here. It says test drive QuickBooks Online. So I'm going to click on that, and that's going to open up a screen here where I can come down here and say, I want to test drive a United States version. This is the advanced version. I don't think you need to test drive the advanced version, but just test drive a United States version, because there's all kind of different versions. Canada. All right, so I'm going to click on that, and this is going to open up a sample company that's going to have some data in it. Select all squares with motorcycles. Okay, hopefully I think there's a motorcycle there. Verify. Let's see. Yep. All right. Let's see if I'm getting in here. Okay. So it's opening up a completely sample company. What online version is best for nonprofits? Someone asks. So for nonprofits, you can get a really great deal for nonprofits if you're truly a 501c3 nonprofit. If you go to a website, and I'll type it into the chat, it's called TechSoup. TechSoup. I'm pretty sure it's com or it might be org. TechSoup.com. And if you go through that process, you can get a very good deal where it's only maybe $75. Or if you want to get the advanced version, you can pay $150 a year and you can have a tech soup company for QuickBooks Online. So just check out that website. It's either TechSoup.org or TechSoup.com. It's for nonprofits to get that. Okay. So on the QuickBooks, the sample company that we got here, there's a couple major sections here, and this is called the left navigation bar down the left side. And then another main area is the gear, the master gear up here in the top right. So when I click on the master gear, all these little widgets and things pop up trying to educate me about QuickBooks Online. But when I click on the master gear, I can see things about my company. I can see things about list, tools, and profile, talking about your subscription and billing. Under your company, this is going to be where you can manage your users. You can, if I click on manage users, I can invite anybody can go to the accountants tab. Well, it won't let me in this test company, but I can go to the accountants tab and I can invite a QuickBooks Pro advisor like myself. I would give you a certain email that you can invite me into, and then I could log into your QuickBooks at the same time and help you. And then you also have users. You might have an office manager. You might have an accounts payable person. So that's where it's talking about with Simple Start, you can only have one user. But with the Essentials version, you could have three users. And so that's where that would be. And then for the Plus version, you can have five users. Okay, so I'm going to click back on the Master Gear again. And so, really, the main things that drive QuickBooks is your chart of accounts and your products and services, which is under list. Your chart of accounts and your products and services. So when I look at my chart of accounts, and so when you start up your QuickBooks, it's going to ask you some questions like what type of business are you? You know, how is your business set up? Are you an LLC? Are you a nonprofit? Are you a sole proprietorship? And then it'll ask you questions like, do you sell products? So every business either provide services or you sell products. You provide services or you sell products or you do both. And so I'm using QuickBooks Self-Employed. Are you covering that version today? The QuickBooks Self-Employed is a very low version of QuickBooks Online. I would not use the QuickBooks Self-Employed. It maybe would work for you, but if you ever think that you want to move up to a more full version like Simple Start or Essentials, all of that data from Self-Employed will not come up. So you'd probably want to start out with Simple Start. That's very affordable, where it's only $30 a month for the full price. But with the discount, you can get 30% off of that. I wouldn't mess around with the Self-Employed because it's not really a full QuickBooks Online company, and I think you'll regret it in the end. So I think I would try to go ahead and get started on QuickBooks Online Simple Start and not use that. All right, when I'm looking at my chart of accounts here, hold on just a second. Sorry, Danny. When I'm looking at my chart of accounts, these are the account types right here. I have a couple bank accounts. I have one called checking and one called savings. A lot of times I would like to maybe edit this, and instead of calling it checking, I might want to expand on it a little bit and say it's Wells Fargo checking, and then the last four digits of the account number, 7890. Wells Fargo checking 7890. I just edited it, and so I hit save. And so now that's going to say Wells Fargo 7890. I would do the same thing on the savings account. So these are your main accounts, your bank accounts and your credit cards. And so the big selling point of QuickBooks Online is that your bank accounts and your credit cards are hooked up to your QuickBooks Online. And so all those transactions that run through your bank or through your credit card feed into QuickBooks. And that's what these little symbols back and forth means. Your credit card's hooked up and your bank accounts are hooked up. So they feed into QuickBooks. And so to see that feed in area, if you've explored QuickBooks much, it's going to be coming over here under transactions. And then I see bank transactions. When I click on bank transactions, you're going to see, yep, I have my Wells Fargo 7890 hooked up. And there's 25 transactions that have fed into like this holding area. And then I have my savings account. When I click on that tile, I'm seeing one transaction that has fed in from my savings account. When I click on the tile for MasterCard, I see there's 7 transactions that have fed into QuickBooks. Now, when they've fed into this area, they're not really affecting anything yet. You want to get them from this feed in area on all the way over to the register. So right now, when they're sitting here on the feed in area, they're not affecting any financial reports. And a lot of people get really lost on this and they start hitting add, match, view, whatever. And so you really need to understand what you're really doing here, because you're really taking it from this feed in area and you're moving it. Like if I click on add, I'm moving it on to the register. It's going all the way to the register. And once it gets to the register, that means it's affecting your financial reports. But the thing about it here on this feed in screen, you want to make sure that your payee, which is your vendor, the person you're paying. Now, like this right here, this is not really a vendor because this is money coming in. It's on the receive side. So this is really a customer name instead of a payee name. They should put a / customer because it can be either one. But on this right here, this is money going out under the spent column. So Bob's Burger Joint, you spent $18.97. Bob's Burger Joint. And so what it says, when it says here, it says one match found, that means that like in the register, it's already there. So like if I would say, well, let me go look and see if it's in the register. So if I'm on my MasterCard, it says there is a match found. That means it's went out here and it's looked at the register and it saw $18.97. So I want to go and look and see if I see it. So I'm going to hit go to bank register. So this is like home base. And so I'm looking for that $18.97, which is in the charge column. And it says Bob's Burger Joint, and it's classified as meals and entertainment. When I open that up, I can edit it and look at it completely. I can see that the payee name, my vendor name, is Bob's Burger Joint. I'm paying it out of which bank account or credit card. I'm paying it out of the MasterCard. And it's categorized as meals and entertainment. This is from the chart of accounts. On your chart of accounts, we have an expense account called meals and entertainment, and there's $18.97. So you'll notice here that on your register, I don't see any C's, which means it's cleared the bank feeds, because it's still sitting in the bank feeds. It's still sitting in the bank feeds. So I'm going to jump back over into my bank feeds again. So I'm going to go back over to transactions. And this is really a lot of things that can help people, is that I can right click and open bank transactions in a new tab. So basically, I get another tab going so that this is where my bank transactions are. And over here is where my register is. So anything I want to, like if I come down to expenses, I can see my vendors. Those are my people I pay. If I right click, I can open vendors in a new tab. So then that way I can maneuver around in QuickBooks Online really easily. So I can click on vendors, and so I can see Bob's Burger Joint. I can click on my bank transactions. These are the bank feed things that are happening. And then I can click on expense, and there's my register. So by opening up these different tabs, if you can kind of keep it in your mind what's going on, these are really handy. So I want to go back to my bank transactions, and on Bob's Burger Joint, it says, I see it in the register already. I see a match in the register. So that's great because we need it in the register. We want it to affect our financial reports so I can see that, yes, I did go to Bob's Burger Joint. So if I hit match, it moves it out of my bank feed. So no longer do I have 7. Now I have 6 to review. And what it does is it moves it out of for review. It has moved it to the categorized area. And so I can see it in the categorized area. And if I'd see that I had made a mistake, I could undo it and it would send it back to for review. In categorized, I'm back empty. In for review, that Bob's Burger Joint is back out there. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to hit match. And so that number goes down to 6. So that means it moved it out of for review to categorized, but it also moved it all the way to the register. It moved it all the way to the register. And I'm going to go look at it in the register. Now, if I click on go to bank register right here, I'm messing up this tab. But if I go back over here to the expense category, that will be my bank register. And so that $18.97, it's so quick that I need to refresh my QuickBooks Online because I'm expecting a C to be right here on Bob's Burger Joint. So I'm going to hit refresh, which is this little half circle up here. When I click on that, that's going to refresh that bank register screen. And you can see I have a C now. And so that is your goal in your register. You want everything to have C's and symbols. It's like a double check thing. It's like you get it in the register. Maybe you recorded it in the register. And then when the bank feed happens, it's like, yes, it's already in the register. So there's a match. I know that might be kind of confusing, but just bear with me. Okay, can we bring in Venmo as like a bank or a credit card account? No, I don't think Venmo. I don't really use Venmo that much, but I'm pretty sure that Venmo has issues trying to connect with QuickBooks. Yeah. How about credit cards that had some for personal charges? You don't want to mix personal and business together because that's just a lot of extra work. But if for some reason that you do pull in something that's personal, you would want to to categorize that as an equity account. And we'll talk a little bit more about equity accounts in a minute, but that is like personal stuff, equity accounts, like owner's contribution. If you had to put your personal money in your business to get it started, I had to put $5,000 in my business. That would mean that you're making an owner's contribution of $5,000 into your business. You wouldn't call that income. You would call that equity. I'm putting equity into my business. If you accidentally had charged something out of your business account, but it was really personal, then you would want to categorize that as owner's draw, which is also going to be an equity account. Sometimes you're putting money in, sometimes you're taking money out. But anything to have to do with personal money is called equity. Okay. I have Mint and it connects to my QuickBooks Online and brings in all my business transactions. How can I get rid of that? Well, you want to, if you're Mint, I'm not real familiar with Mint, but if you don't want them in there, you can just disconnect that from your QuickBooks. So like if I go to over here to transactions, and I'm going to go bank transactions. Remember, I was, well, I clicked on it, so I messed up my little tab here. But right here, any of these accounts, if I didn't need these any longer, I could click on that little button right there and edit it, edit account, disconnect this account on save. And so that will disconnect so that that doesn't feed in anymore. Okay. All right, so let me go back over here to my bank register. I wanted to show you. So on my bank register, on my credit card, so up here it's right now it jumped into my 7890, which is my bank account. I want to go back to my credit card, my MasterCard, I believe it was. And so there's that 1897. Okay, if I go over here to bank transactions again, and so let me just tell you a little bit about the left navigation bar. So they've added a new feature here called bookmarks. And so they put an example up here of bank transactions. So I can click on bank transactions and I can see what's fed into all my different accounts. Now, I'd like in the bookmarks, I like to put my customer names and my vendor names. So to find my customer names, that would mean I have to come down here to sales, and then I can see my customers. When I come to sales and I come over, I can see my customers. And I can even click on this little symbol right here, and that's going to lock it into my bookmarks. And so next time I want to go to my customer center where I can see all of my customers, I don't have to come down to sales and then go over here to customers. If I see it right here in my bookmarks, I can click on it and I can see these are my customers. These are the people who pay me. That's what customers are. They pay me. I pay vendors. So I want to put my vendors on my bookmarks also. So to find my vendors, I would come down to expenses. Sales, I sell to customers. I pay to vendors. And so if I come over here to vendors, I got to go across and then down. I can click this right here, and that will add vendors to my bookmarks. Another thing that I really like on my bookmarks is my chart of accounts, because I can get to everything on my chart of accounts. So my chart of accounts is under transactions. I come across, I come down to my chart of accounts, and I choose it. So now I've got my chart of accounts, my bank transactions, and my customers and vendors. Those are the ones that I like there. And in fact, I can edit it and I could move chart of accounts up to the top if I wanted to and hit save. I can put as many things on this bookmarks that I want to, but you don't want to go crazy. So those are the 4 things that I usually put on there. And what I was talking about, going to your chart of accounts. So on your chart of accounts, this is where everything is on your chart of accounts. And so if I needed to look at that register, one way I can look at it is go to bank transactions, find that tab that says 7890, and then I could see that register. Another way I could see the register is going to my chart of accounts and viewing my register. When I view my register, I'm seeing everything that's sitting on my Wells Fargo checking 7890. Now I can jump around because when I'm on this drop down here, I'm looking at the chart of accounts. I can jump into my savings account. And so this is what's sitting in my savings account. I can jump into my credit card, my MasterCard. This is what's sitting on my MasterCard account. So I think it's really helpful to understand how QuickBooks, how the flow works. Okay, we have a question here. If I use my personal credit card to start my business and in some emergencies, now I get a credit card only for business, but for the last year transfers, I need to learn how to categorize that card. What I would do is I would create a cash bank and put all of those credit card transactions in. So what I mean by that is I would go to my chart of accounts, and this is where everything is set up on my chart of accounts. So I want to set up a cash bank on my chart of accounts. So if I come up here on my chart of accounts and I say, well, I want to set up a new account. Okay, the first thing it wants to know, well, what do you want to set up? And you would call this a bank because it's your cash bank. Save account under, and I'm going to choose bank accounts. Tax form section. Let me see what I'm going to choose cash on hand. And the account name is I'm going to call it Cash Bank. You can't reconcile a cash bank, but this is a way of like capturing all of those personal expenses that you've paid with, whether you paid it with your personal credit card or you got your billfold out of your pocket and you paid for it with that way. I'm setting up a cash bank, so I'm going to hit save. And so now on my chart of accounts, I have a cash bank. You'll notice it's not hooked up because you wouldn't want to hook it up because you don't want to bring in a bunch of junk and everything. So, but you do have a cash bank register now. Okay. The register is completely empty. I'm in my cash bank register and it's completely empty. Let me go back to my chart of accounts. And so let's say I have a bunch of charges on my personal credit card that were really business expenses. And so I need to put them in QuickBooks Online so that they show up when I run a profit and loss report. So I'm going to come up here to the plus new. This is the main areas that you're going to be using. You're going to be using the master gear, you're going to use the plus new, and you're going to be using the left navigation bar. Okay, so if I come to the plus new button, and this is what I call doing the work. So if you went to Walmart and you bought some office supplies, you would want to, Walmart would be considered a vendor. It's somebody that you pay. Customers pay you. And so if customers are going to pay you, you have probably created either an invoice or a sales receipt. I'll talk a little bit more about the difference between those two. But right now we're talking about a vendor. I went to Walmart and used my personal credit card, but I don't want to hook my personal credit card up to QuickBooks. But I want to record this expense. On vendors, it's either an expense or a check. A check is a real check. A check is a check. Everything else is an expense. This is different from like desktop. Desktop always called them checks. But there's a difference in QuickBooks Online. There's checks, which is real checks, and then everything else is expenses. So if I went to Walmart and used my personal credit card, I would just want to record an expense out here and say, I went to Walmart. That is my vendor name. And I would like to add new Walmart. And that is my vendor name called Walmart. It'll show up down here also. And that's really all I need. I'm going to save. So there's my Walmart. I'm going to say it's not coming out of my real operating bank. It's coming out of my cash bank. And then I'm going to say it's for office supplies. I start typing office and I see I have an expense account, office expenses. So I'm going to say, well, I spent $52 at Walmart. And in the description, I can say, well, it was copy paper, anything I want to. So let me hit save and close. So I'm recording it in my cash bank that I went to Walmart on January the 18th. The payment method, we can just say cash, or you could create a payment method called personal credit card if you wanted to. You could add new and create personal credit card as a payment method. And so when I hit save and close, now in that register, I can see that I spent $52 of my personal money for a business expense. Now this register is just going to keep going negative, 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 negative. But at some point, you could pay yourself back for all those personal expenses that you paid out of your personal credit card or your personal billfold. That you could write yourself a check. This negative number is just going to go negative $2,500. But at some point, you could write yourself and pay yourself back for paying that. So once I have some money in my account, I could say I want to go to plus new and I want to write a check, and I want to write a check to me. So I'm going to say Jeff Weathers. I'm going to add Jeff Weathers as a vendor. Anybody you pay is a vendor. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to say, well, I'm writing it out of my business account. So my check number is, let's say 3078. Okay. And I'm going to pay myself back. So all I need to do is just point it back to my cash bank. So I'm looking for my cash bank. This is my whole chart of accounts. I've got some expense accounts, some other incomes, some other current liabilities. I'm looking for my bank account. Here's my bank accounts. Cash bank. Pay back for personal expenses that were for the business. Okay. And let's say I need to just I want just to clear it out and pay myself back $50. Now, I doubt you'd be doing this constantly all the time. But now when I hit save and close, you can see, oh, did it wrong? This check is $52. So if I see I made a mistake, all I got to do is just click on this line and hit edit. And I needed to write this check for $52. So now my register is to 0. In fact, I'll change this date here and say, well, it wasn't on the 18th. It was on the 20th that I paid myself back. So I'm going to hit save. So now I can see that I charged $52. So does that make sense? You put all your personal stuff, whether you paid it out of your billfold or you paid it out of your personal credit card, just list everything in your cash bank. And then at some point you can pay yourself back for that. Because when I recorded this paying myself back, it's put it also in this register. It's also in the cash bank register, but it's also in the 7890 register. So here's that in 7890. This is me paying it back out of my my operating account. So my balance of my operating account went from 1201 to 1149 because I paid myself back. All right, I think I got that one there. Can you repeat what the other equity was? So let's look at our chart of accounts. So I'm going to go to my chart of accounts and see, I'm not taking the time to do these little tabs. And so my tab just keeps changing all the time. So now I'm on my chart of accounts. So here's your bank accounts. And like I say, your cash bank will not be hooked up to anything because you just don't hook up your cash bank. Accounts receivable. Let's look at all these different account types and what they mean. Accounts receivable means when I create an invoice, my accounts receivable register is going to go up. Like if I look at this register, whenever I create an invoice, my register is going to go up. And then when they pay that invoice, my register is going to go down. So let me go back over here, go back to my chart of accounts. So that's what accounts receivable is when you create an invoice, your accounts receivable register goes up, but when they pay that invoice, your accounts receivable goes down. Then you might have assets. And so these are things that are paid for, that are yours. Like you might have other current assets and you might have fixed assets. Okay, I'm not going to go too deep in all this stuff. Accounts payable. This is where if you had the essentials version, that you could enter a bill and then at some point you could go pay a bill. And so that's when I look at this register for accounts payable, that's what it is I'm entering a bill, but then sometimes I go pay the bill. So your your register is going up and down. That is what all of these accounts are called. They're balance sheet accounts. Your bank accounts, your accounts receivable, your assets, your accounts payable, your credit cards, your liabilities. These are what you owe people. Do you owe the government? Have you taken out payroll taxes? Those would be called other current liabilities. Do you owe a big note on your business? You're financing your business and you have a long term, anything that's going to be over a year to pay back would be considered a long term liability. And then you get into the equity section. And so the equity section right here is not the way that I would want my equity section set up. So what I would want to do is I would want to create an equity section that would work for me. So what I'm going to do, and you'll notice all of these are called balance sheet accounts. And that's why it says QuickBooks Balance. But you'll notice after these balance sheet accounts, then we get into another financial report called the profit and loss report. That is showing your income minus your cost of goods sold minus your expenses to tell you if you made money or lost money. So we'll talk more about that, but that is your two financial reports that you're going to look at is your balance sheet report, which is basically just a snapshot in time of where these different accounts sit. How much money is sitting in my credit card? How much do I owe my credit card? How much is sitting in my bank accounts? This is just a snapshot called the balance sheet account. And the other report is called the profit and loss report, which is going to show you your income minus your cost of goods sold minus your expense. Okay, so I wanted to show you on the equity account. So I want to say, well, I want to set up a new account. So the first thing it wants to know, well, what kind of account are you wanting to set up? So I want to set up an equity account. And so under this select here, I'm going to choose equity. The tax form section, just look for the owner's equity. That would be appropriate. And the account name, we're just going to call it owner's equity. It'll take some getting used to figure out how to get this set up. So when I hit save, I have now set up as an equity account, an account called owner's equity. And so under owner's equity, I want to have owner's contributions and owner's distributions. It's according to like how your business is set up. Do you call it shareholders contribution and shareholder distribution? It's the wording, but the wording's not that important. I mean, your accountant's going to understand. So now I want to go back and set up another account. It's an equity account. And I want to save it under owner's equity, tax form sections, owner's equity, and I'm going to call it owner's contribution. I'm going to hit save. See, you can see here that it went under equity as owner's contribution. Okay. So now I want to do one more. New. It's an equity account. I want to put it under owner's equity. And I'm going to say owner's draw, because I accidentally bought something that was personal using my business money. So I'm going to hit save. So now in my equity section, I have under owner's equity, I have an owner's contribution and an owner's draw. And most people, when they start their business up, they had to put some money in their bank account to get it going. That's not income. That's owner's contribution. That's your owner's personal money that you had to put in QuickBooks. And so let's do that. So let's go to the plus new. Let's go do the work. So when I go to the plus new, I can see I need to do a bank deposit. I need to put $1,000 of my personal money into the business. So when I click on bank deposit, so where do I want to deposit it? I want to deposit it into my Wells Fargo checking, my operating account. Okay. And I'm ignoring all this stuff at the top because this is additional stuff. I'm going to come down here, add funds to this deposit. And I don't even have to put my name here, but under the account, I want to find that equity account. So when I do my drop down, I'm looking at my chart of accounts again. I'm seeing first, it guesses at where you want to see first. So it's showing me my income accounts. And then it's showing me some more income accounts and other expense and liabilities and assets and fixed assets. I'm looking for these equity accounts. So I'm just coming down this list, looking for my equity. And I'm going to say it's an owner's contribution. And I had to put, let's say $5,000. I had to put $5,000 of my personal money. So I'm going to hit save and close. So now in my 7890, if I view that register, I can see here is the $5,000 that I put in as owner's contribution, because my register was at 1201. But here on January the 18th, I put in $5,000. Now, usually this would be the very first date of when you opened up your business account. I had to drop $5,000 of my personal money in the account to get it started off. So now when I'm looking at my chart of accounts, I'm going to see here under my equity, I'm going to see. So if I put in money, it's going to be on this line. But if I take out money, it's going to be under owner's draw. And so this owner's equity, the main account, would show the difference. So like if I had accidentally charged $50 here as owner's draw, then this would show as 49.50 is the balance. All right, let's see what we've missed here. So owner's draw. Okay. When I open the chart accounts in my QuickBooks, I do not have an option to view the register. The only action I have available is run report or edit. When I open my chart of accounts in my QuickBooks. So when you go to your chart of accounts in your QuickBooks, to view the register, you should have view register there. If you don't have view register, maybe you need to go out and come back in again. Sometimes it is quirky, but you should be able to view your register. Now, another way, if you've got it hooked up, another way to view your register would be, let me go to my bank transactions. Let me get on my register, and then I can go to my bank register this way. So that will take you into my register. Okay. I use a program called House Call Pro that integrates with QuickBooks Online. I do my billing and take payments through it. Are you familiar with that? Should I bill from QuickBooks instead? Nope. If you're using House Call Pro, I would let that House Call Pro do all of that to keep up with your customers and to, figure out, have they paid you? You don't have to use invoices in QuickBooks and receive payments in QuickBooks. If you're using House Call Pro, what I would do is I would just let the feed in, because the House Call Pro is going to drop income from your House Call Pro program into your QuickBooks. And so you're going to see it feed in. So when I'm over here under bank transactions, I'm going to see some feed in areas. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about feeding in and how that can works. And so what I would want to do is I would want to go back on my chart of accounts, go back to my chart of accounts, and I would want to create an income account called House Call Pro Income. Okay. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say, I want to set up a new account. It's going to be an income account. So I'm going to choose income. Tax form section. This is not very important, but I'm just going to say service fee income. You got to choose something. And the name of this account is going to be called House Call Pro Income. So now I'm going to hit save. So now in my income accounts, it's in alphabetical order, House Call Pro Income. And so then when the bank transactions, when you see that money come feeding in, you can teach it a rule that, like, when you see House Call Pro money coming in on the receive side, I want you to direct it to House Call Pro Income account on your chart of accounts. Great questions. Let's see if I can keep up. What happens, or what it means when you have a negative number on equity? We have a negative number on equity. That would mean that you have drawn out more than you have put in. Yeah, so you'd have to look at your equity account and see, but that's what that means, because that should be a positive number, unless, well, you could draw out more than you put in if you charged a bunch of equity accounts. So the two reports that we're after, let's come down here to reports. So on the reports, there's two financial reports, the balance sheet report and the profit and loss report. Let's just look at a profit and loss report. That's where you're going to see your income minus your cost of goods sold minus your expense and tell you if you made money or not. So when I click on a P&L report, it's defaulting to this year to date. So there's hardly anything in here for this year to date. So let me just change my dates and say all dates. Okay. And then I'm going to hit run report. So then when I'm looking at that, I can see these are the different income accounts that we've used so far. And I can see my total income. My total income is 10,200.77. So these are all these different income accounts that they've got set up in this sample company. So yours is going to be very simple. Yours is not going to have all these different extra income accounts. Just like maybe the only thing you have is House Call Pro Income. Okay. So, but when I'm looking at my reports here and I got all dates, I can say, show it to me by months. And then when I hit run report, it shows me this sample company. It started up in August of 2023. Then I can see in September, in October, in November, in December, in January, and I can see my income for each one. And so in the month of October, I had a total of $521 worth of income. Some of it was landscaping services, okay, which is basically uh, all these numbers added together. 521, this 431, and then this 90 is 521. So you can really analyze your numbers. And so when I look at my income minus my cost of goods sold, and what cost of goods sold is direct costs to you making the money. You might not even need any cost of goods sold accounts. They both get minused out of the income. Your expenses get minused out and your cost of goods sold get minused out. But it's just a way of looking at my income for December was 7,371.52. But my direct cost to me making that 7,371 was $405. And so then I can see, just by with a glance, I can see my profit, my gross profit is 6,966. I can kind of see my direct cost associated with me making the income. If you had a lamp store, you would have to go buy a bunch of lamps to put in your store to sell. So those would be direct costs to you selling those lamps. And so you would call that cost of goods sold. I had to go buy a bunch of inventory, a bunch of lamps, and those are direct costs to me making the money. So I can see, yeah, my lamps cost me $405 and I've sold 7,000. So I made a profit of 69.66. Then you got to take out all your expenses. So when you look at your 69.66 and then you take out all your expenses, your total expenses are 39.63 in the month of December. So your profit, your net operating income is 3,002. So because you went from 7,000, I had to take away the 405. That took me down to 69.66. Then I had to take out all my expenses, which were 39.63. And so then I have a profit of $3,000. And so this example of this company here is showing in the month of August, you had a loss of $300 because you didn't have any income. Your total income was zero. Your cost of goods sold was zero. So you're sitting at zero, but then you had to pay $300 to a lawyer. So you had a loss in the month of August. But in the month of September, you made money. You made $391.25 because your income was $391.25. You had no direct cost, so your profit was $391.25. Then you had no expenses. Is that making sense? Let's look at October. So in October, just like you're going to design your chart of accounts, you're going to create your income accounts that are going to tell you about your business. Like for me, my income accounts might be bookkeeping services. I might have another income account called payroll services. I might have another income account called cleanup services, so that I could run a P&L report and I can see how much money I'm making from bookkeeping and payroll and from cleanups. And so those might be my three income accounts. Now, I don't really have cost of goods sold because I don't have direct costs to me making the money. I have more expenses. And so they both get minused out of the income. So you don't have to have direct costs. But down here for expenses, I might have software cost or computer and internet expenses or utilities. These are the expense accounts. And you can see all these different expense accounts. And when you start up your QuickBooks, it gets you a chart of accounts up and running. Now, you might need to doctor it up and clean it up a little bit. So I always advise, I would spend a few bucks and find a pro advisor or someone that understands QuickBooks that can really get you set up and get you started off right. Because if you don't get started off right, then you're just lost. All right, so let me see here what else we got. I believe you integrate from HCP side into QuickBooks and not vice versa. Well, so your HCP is dropping into your bank account, if I'm not mistaken. Your House Call Pro makes deposits into your operating account. And then your operating account feeds into QuickBooks. So you can see, oh, today $3,000 came in. Tomorrow, $2,500 come in. Okay. I have a receivables account. Account is one of my bank accounts, and all my receipts through House Call go to it. Do I need to set up a separate income account? When I tried to add a category, it prompted me to create a new account. Did I do something wrong? Now you're talking about in House Call Pro. Now, I don't know about House Call Pro, how that works, but House Call Pro, from what I understand, it at some point you move the money out of your House Call Pro account into your operating bank account. Will you discuss integration with Shopify? Are you QuickBooks and Shopify a good marriage? Shopify and QuickBooks work great together. You're going to need a professional that's going to like be able to hook your Shopify and get that set up. And you can find people. There are people that specialize in QuickBooks Online and Shopify. Um, um, so if you Google that and try to find somebody that specializes in that, will you be showing us best practices to reconcile? Yes, I will. Okay. All right, so let's go over here. So we kind of looked at the profit and loss report, and then the other report that we look at is called the balance sheet. They're up here in our favorites under balance sheet. And down here under business overview, this is where they are also. And so really, if the profit and loss by month is something that I like and I want to look at all the time to realize how am I doing every single month, I'm going to flag that as one of my favorites. And so now it's sitting up here into my favorites. And so when I run a profit and loss by month, it's defaulting to this year to date, but I'm going to say, let's switch it back to all dates and let's hit run report. So there I can see my profit and loss by month real quick. So let's go back to report listings, and I want to show you what the balance sheet is. Now, the balance sheet is just these balance sheets where they stand at a particular date. So as of January the 18th, on your bank accounts, this is how much is in your register in QuickBooks. Says your cash bank is at 0. Now, if I date this, because I think I paid myself back on maybe the 20th. So if I run the report here, now my cash bank is reflecting a 0 balance because I paid myself back by January the 20th. But in my savings account, there's $800. In my Wells Fargo checking, there's $61.49. In my accounts receivable register, that means I've created invoices, and these are open invoices that are owed to me. 5281.52 is owed to me. So if I would come up here to back to report list, and if I would look at my accounts receivable, who owes me money? When I click on accounts receivable, 5281.52. This is how much people owe me. So all these people, are they current? Are they 1 to 30 days late? Are they 31 to 60 days late? Are they 61 to 90 days late? And so all these numbers, the 70 and the 156. So that's exactly how much is owed to me at this point in time. Now, if you're using House Call Pro, House Call Pro's doing all this for you. It's keeping up with your invoicing and your receivables. You don't need to do this in QuickBooks. But in QuickBooks, if I did some bookkeeping work, what I would want to do is I would want to go to do the work. I would go to plus new, and I needed to create an invoice. Let's say I did some work for you. So I would create an invoice, and we'll call this customer Susie Jones. And so I want to add new Susie Jones. That's my customer. And so right now, when I'm seeing my customer, I'm seeing Susie Jones. I don't necessarily, if I'm going to email her an invoice, then yes, I would need to get her email. Or if I'm snail mailing it, I would need to get her snail mail. Most people are just emailing invoices, so I would have to take the time to do that, but I'm not going to take that time. I'm just going to hit save. And so then I've got to come down here and say, what did I do for Susie Jones? What product or service did I sell to her? What product did I sell, or what service did I perform? So I perform bookkeeping services. So I've got to set this up because I know it's not out here. So I'm going to create bookkeeping services. And I'm going to add new. And this is going to be under my products and services. And so it asks me right away, is it an inventory item, a non-inventory item, a service, or a bundle? Most people try to stay away from inventory at all possible. If it's a thing, you call it a non-inventory. If I'm selling her a thing, I don't sell things. So, but if I sold lamps, I would probably want to set those lamps up as a non-inventory item. But I'm selling bookkeeping services, so I'm going to set it up as a service. Okay. So the name of it is called bookkeeping services. I can set these under categories. And when I do my drop down here, I'm seeing all the products and services that are set up in this sample company, but I'm not going to get into setting it up as a category. But this is the wording that pops up on the invoice. So I'm going to say bookkeeping services. Okay. Now, if these services are a set price, so let's say it's $150 an hour. So if I put 150 there, the last thing it's asking me is like, what income account do you want to track this money you're making from this invoice? What income account do you want to track this money in? And so if I do my drop down, it sees an account called services income. Now that might be fine. Services income. That sounds okay. But I really want to know under services income how much I'm making off bookkeeping services as opposed to payroll services. So right here, I'm going to create a new account, and I can just wipe this out. And I'm going to call it bookkeeping services. Don't want that. I just want bookkeeping. That ain't the way you write that. Okay. 2K's right. Bookkeeping services. All right. So when I get it typed right and I hit add new, so I'm setting up something on my chart of accounts. Over here on the right, I'm setting up a product, a service that I sell called bookkeeping services. But now I'm telling it on my chart of accounts, I want to set up an income account. So the account type is correct. You can see there's 16 different types of accounts on your chart of accounts. You've got income accounts. You've got cost of goods sold accounts. You got expense accounts. On your balance sheet, you've got bank accounts, you've got credit card accounts, you've got accounts receivable, you got accounts payable, you got other current liabilities and long-term liabilities, you got equity. So these are all 16 different possibilities on your whole chart of accounts. So right now it's an income account. The detail type is not that serious, but I'm going to say it's service fee income. It's called bookkeeping services. I don't have to write a description. It's very descriptive, but I am going to say it's a sub account under, and I'm looking at my chart of accounts again. Here I'm starting up here at the top on my chart of accounts, and I'm coming all the way past my equity down into my income accounts, and I want to say it's a sub account of services. And I'm going to hit save and close. So my income account is called services bookkeeping services. Okay. This is very important right here when you're setting up your products and services. You want to edit your sales tax. Is it taxable or not taxable? So I'm going to edit because bookkeeping services are not taxable. So I am going to come down here to the bottom. Let's see, bookkeeping services. And I'm going to flag that as non-taxable. And I'm going to hit done because I don't want it to pop any sales tax on this invoice. So I'm going to hit save and close. So now it populated bookkeeping services. It picked up the description that I put. And let's say that it took 2 hours instead of 1 hour. So 2 hours. And so that means that Susie Jones, owes me $300. Okay. I don't, and this is very important that you can flag this on and off, but you do not want to do that. If you have a item that sometimes it's taxable and sometimes it's not taxable, you've got to set up two different items. I wish they would cut this off where you cannot even change this on the fly. But see, when I did that, it tried to pop $24 of California sales tax on here. You should never play around with that tax button right there. Now, if sometimes if the bookkeeping services was taxable, I should set up two different products, one called bookkeeping services non-taxable and one called bookkeeping services taxable. So I'm not playing around with this right here because this affects the sales tax module that's built into QuickBooks Online. And the QuickBooks Online module does have some issues. And so that's why we have to have a item, product, or service set up either taxable or non-taxable and not play around with checking this box or unchecking this box. All right, so I'm going to hit save and close. And so I have created a customer out here. So if I go to my customers and I go to Susie Jones, there's Susie Jones. When I click on Susie Jones, I can see the invoice that I have created for her. I can edit the invoice. If I had made a mistake, I could get back into it and I could change it. Oh, it was really ended up being 3 hours. And so I can send it. So most people that are creating invoices inside of QuickBooks, they're using Intuit payments where you can set up an Intuit merchant account. If you think that you need an Intuit merchant account, if you'll contact me, I can get you the best rates that are possible where that you could email this invoice to Susie Jones. She would have a link on there where she can pay it. I can either let her pay it using a credit card or I can let her pay it using ACH, which means it's just going to route the money from her bank account into my bank account. And it costs $10 max. It's 1% up to a max. So if I sent her a $450 invoice, it would cost me $4.50 to get paid that way. If I enabled the credit card option, it's going to be like the credit card rate, whatever it is, maybe 3%. So 3% times 450 is going to be a $12 fee. So I send all my invoices out with only ACH enabled so that people can click on that view and pay link. They can pay me that way, and then I'll pay the 1% fee to get paid electronically. And it all comes in. It comes in the QuickBooks. It hooks it up to this invoice. It closes this invoice, and it even puts the deposit into the register. Okay, so I'm going to hit save and close here. So now Susie Jones, if I would go back to my reports and I would look at an accounts receivable report, we're going to see Susie Jones is now out here saying that she owes $450 and she's current. She's not past due yet. It's not 1 to 30 days past due. All right, let's see what else we got here. With the ad category that was in my bank account. I'm not sure, Brian. Can't not for with the ad category that was in my bank account. Can you do a P&L by week? Yes, you can do a P&L by week. Should buying materials for a building project be categorized as non-inventory? Unless, yes, non-inventory. If you're not tracking inventory, the only times I could think if I was wanting to track inventory is once you turn inventory on, it's like, let's say that you're a mattress store and you had to go buy a lot of different mattresses to put in your warehouse. You might want to call that inventory, but so that you could always see exactly if you need inventory, you need to talk to a specialist and get some help to get that set up right. But most people, if you're selling a product and you're not tracking inventory, I don't want to keep track of how many of these I have. You would set that up as a non-inventory part. You either have inventory parts or non-inventory parts. A non-inventory part means it's a thing, but we're not tracking how many of that thing I have in my building. What is an example of something that is sometimes taxable and sometimes not? Taxable, what I understand is if you sell products, they're taxable. If you sell services, they're not taxable. Sometimes, just like getting your car worked on, they're selling you products. They're selling you an oil filter, and they're performing a service. They're both taxable. So it's getting with your accountant or your tax person to figure out, am I supposed to be collecting sales tax? So if it's services, non-taxable. If it's products, taxable. If it's both, I'm selling products and services, then both of them should probably be taxable. For ACH payments, can you automatically set up the invoice to add an additional 1% so the fee is paid by the client and not deducted from my income? I'm pretty sure you cannot do that. You cannot do that. How do you record a vendor who wants to be paid with cash only? Well, if a vendor wants to be paid with cash only, um, you would, if you're gonna, it's according to how you're getting that cash. I mean that's fine if you want to pay a vendor with cash only. That's fine. So, do you want to record it out of your cash bank? Or do you want to write a check for cash and get $300 out of your operating account so you can hand them $300 of cash money? So either one of those other are you going to involve your bank account or are you just paying it out of your billfold? If you increase the amount you're charging the customer, then it will just take 1% of that new amount. I don't think there is a way around it. We tried early last year and couldn't break out of the fee cycle. Yeah, the fee cycle is 1%. I think they just bumped it up to where it's a max of $15. But I know that I can get it down to a max of $10. So that means everything over $1,000 would be a $10 max. If they owed you $3,000, it would be 1% up to a max of $10. So it would be a max of $10 to get paid $3,000. If you send an invoice out for $500, it would be a $5 fee, 1% of $500. Gets very confusing. There's lots to think about. So let's get to the bank transactions. And so really what you want to do is you want to do the work as much as you can. So when I'm here on the operating account and I see it says one match found. So what that means, and so this means in the bank feed, 25 transactions have fed into the bank feeds and it says one match found. So that means it's seeing that in the register. So let's go and see if we see that in the register. So if I go to my bank register, 860 8.15. It's in the register. I took the time to do the work. Right here's the deposit. When I open that deposit up, I can see where some payments came in, and they came into this area called undeposited funds. And then I took all of these payments to the bank and deposited 868.15 at the bank. So I did the work. And so that's usually what you want to do is you want to go and do the work. I need to record a bank deposit. So like if I click on bank deposit right now, it shows me what people have paid. Like Cool Cars made a payment of $1675.52. So I want to do the work. I want to grab the Cool Cars and I want to grab the payment from Freeman Sporting Goods. So I am putting a deposit of $2,062.52 into my register on January the 18th. So I'm going to hit save and close. So there's that deposit that I just built. So when that deposit tomorrow, I'll see that deposit come through my bank feeds, and then it will tell me that it sees a match because I put it in the register. So let me go back over here to my bank transactions. So I can't demonstrate that yet because I don't see it in the bank feeds yet, but I can demonstrate this one, the 868.15. When I hit match, what that does is it means it cleared the bank feeds. It moved it out of for review. This went down to 24. It moved it to categorized. And it also moved it all the way to the register. All the way to the register with a C and a symbol. So that is before you reconcile, you want everything to have C's and symbols. So if I go back over to my bank transactions, and I'm looking here, and it says I see this money going out 228.75 to Hicks Hardware. On this bank feed, you want to make sure you've got a vendor name. That's who you paid. And if it says it's already in the register, so the 228.75 dated 12/23 is probably already in the register. So let me go look. 228.75 on 12/23. It's in the register. So that means I did the work. I came here and I recorded the check. I wrote a check here, check number 75. I bought these items. Most people don't, unless you're a complex business, you're not getting into items. You would probably be putting it in category. And so in the category, I would probably choose my cost of goods sold category or either my supplies expense account, something like that. I probably would not be getting into these products and services. All right, so it's there. And so now I'm going to go back to my bank transactions. It's kind of just a flow that you have to get used to. And so I'm going to hit match. It sees it in the register. So I'm going to say match. So basically all of these things, it's seeing them in the register. So if you see them in the register, you can trust them. So like if I say match, it's in the register. That 408, it's already in the register, so I'm going to match it. This payment here to Travis, no, this is money coming in. Going to match that. Going to match that. Going to match that. Now, when it says two matches, that means that you've got to choose. On this squeaky clean car, I paid them $19.99. In the register, it sees two 1999s. One's recorded as a cash expense and one is recorded as a check debit. So I'm kind of looking at the dates and the 12/21 and 12/21. So I'm going to match it with that. So now let me go over here on my bank register, and you're going to see that I'm starting to populate a lot of C's and symbols because that's what you want. You want it to end up in your register with C's and symbols. Now, anything that's not over here in your register that does not have a C, you need to figure out why. Because once it's made it to the register, it's affecting your financial reports. And if it didn't really come through the bank, you would be questioning like, I don't want it affecting my financial reports. Okay, let's see if we got some more questions. If you increase the amount you're charging, okay, got that one. You can either charge the ACH or credit card fees as separate line items, or just raise your prices enough to factor it in. You're getting smart there. You're figuring it out. For cash received, can I create an invoice for that cash, and then when I receive the payment, go to the invoice and categorize it as received payment and show where I deposited? What you would want to do if you have an invoice that's open, so let me go to find the customer. So let's see. So this person, Amy's Bird Sanctuary, they have an open balance of $239. If I click on Amy's Bird Sanctuary, I can see that 239. She has an open balance of 239. About every screen has a baby gear. This is the master gear up here, and this is called the baby gear. So let me go to the baby gear. And one thing I like to turn on the baby gear is the balance. So then I could spot real easily, because that thing that when I went to my customers, it said she owes $239. So since I've turned my balance on, another thing you want to probably turn on is to see as many rows as possible. So then you just click off the gear, baby gear again. So now that I can spot it real quick, this is the invoice that owes $239. So if I hit receive payment, and let's say that she paid me with cash, and she paid me the full $239. Let's say she didn't pay me the $239. Let's say she only paid me $100. She came in and paid me $100 cash. It's hooked to this invoice, which was originally $459, but right now it owes $239. She's paying me $100, so she's still going to owe $139. Now I have an option here. With this cash, where do I want to put it? Do I want to send it to this area called undeposited funds, or do I want to send it straight to my bank account? That will be determined like, how are you taking it to the bank? Where are you putting the $100? Are you putting it in your pocket? Then you would call it cash bank. If you're putting it in your billfold, you could deposit it in the cash bank. But normally you want to just run everything through undeposited funds. So if I say they paid me with cash and I'm putting it in undeposited funds, so I'm going to hit save and close. So then I go to plus new, and I'll say I'm ready to go to the bank, and everything that you have sent to undeposited funds is going to be sitting right here. And so then you could grab that $100 and you could deposit that $100 either into your operating account or your cash bank or whatever, or you could just let that $100 sit on your desk, just sitting there. And maybe you want to receive payment on another payment. Let me do this. So I'm not going to deposit it yet. So let me go back over to my customers. Get back to my customers, and let's see somebody else that owes me money. Okay. Well, Amy Bird Sanctuary, she still owes me $139. So I'm going to, if I can, right here, I can hit receive payment. And let's say she came in and paid the balance. So this time she gave me a check, and it was check number 6876. Again, watch this. I want to send it to undeposited funds. The only way I would want to deposit it into the bank, right to the bank, would be if I'm mobile depositing. If I'm taking a picture, because if you take a picture of a deposit, that's how it's going to show up on your bank statement. Yes, I'm depositing $139. It's always best policy to just always run it through, send it to undeposited funds. So if I do that, so I'm saying I'm putting this check into undeposited funds. So I'm going to hit save and close. Then I'm ready to go to the bank. So I'm going to go do the work. I'm going to go plus new, and I'm going to build a bank deposit. Now, everything that is sitting in undeposited funds is sitting there. And so I say, well, I'm going to grab that $100, and I'm also going to grab that check for $139, and I'm depositing it into my Wells Fargo 7890, $239. So when I hit save and close, now in my register, so I want to get back to my register. So I'm going to go to my chart of accounts. I'm going to go back to my main register, 7890. You can see that $239 that I deposited into the bank. And I can open it up and edit it. And I can see exactly what I did. I grabbed those two things that were sitting in this area called undeposited funds, and now I'm moving it from undeposited funds into Wells Fargo 7890. And that account, undeposited funds, it's just an account set up on your chart of accounts right here. It's called an asset account. And I can view that register. Right now, the register is zero because I had grabbed those two deposits, the 100 and the 139, and then I had deposited it straight into the to the bank. So in my area called undeposited funds, it's now sitting at zero. When I go to plus new and I go bank deposit, I don't have anything sitting in undeposited funds. But that's where a lot of people, because you want it to end up in your register the way it's going to end up on your bank statement. So you need it to end up in the register. If I had deposited them separate, then I would need the 100 and then the 139 separate. Because when they bank feed through the transactions, I won't be able to hit a C if I don't have it in my register the right way. It won't match up. It won't show me a match. Let's see here. If a customer gave me a check with 300, 150 was her bill, and the other 150 was a bonus, a Christmas gift, how can I separate or categorize that income deposit? Okay, so if there's an invoice out there and she only owed you $150, then it's going to show a credit on her account. So that means that you would have to go back to that invoice and create another service that says Christmas gift to bring that invoice up to be $300, because you don't want to leave a $150 credit sitting on her account. So you need to eat up all that money that's given you. So that means that you would have to go to the customer's invoice, and then you would have to add something to the invoice. So here's an invoice out here. And see, I can see here was an invoice for 175, and then here was a payment. So my balance is at zero. But here's an invoice with $85 on it. And I open that invoice up. And if I edit that invoice, and let's see that I want to, she's going to pay me an extra $15. So I would probably come out here and maybe create an item called tip. It's a new product or service called tip. I'm going to set that up as a service. This is the word, tip given is the wording that I want to pop in on here. And so this money they gave to you is income. So maybe I want to call it tip income. I'm setting this up on my, here I'm setting up my product or service, but here I'm setting up something on my chart of accounts. So when I hit add tip income, I'm setting up on my chart of accounts, and this is where the 16 different things are. And we're going to call this income, because if it is money, they gave you money, you made money, so it's income. And I'm going to say service fee income, tip income, hit save and close. I'm not going to say it's definitely not taxable. So I need to say it's non-taxable. Done. Save and close. So they gave me an extra $15. So that brings the invoice up to 100. So now I can receive the payment for the full 100. Because if I didn't have that line, if I receive payment for $100, if I say receive payment, and let's say it was cash, and she gave me $100, but the invoice was only $85, there's going to be a credit of $15 out there. So hit save and close, and that's not what I want. And so that shows that Bill's Win Shop Serve has a credit of $15. So I need to eat up all that money that she gave me. And you can drop that into an income account. I created an income account called Tip Income. If you don't want to claim it, maybe you can call it an other income account or something. How are tips not taxable? Tips are not taxable. Tips are not taxable. You might be thinking about tips. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. If tips are not taxable, is that how the customer can pay that 1%? I mean, you could, I guess I mean, you could add a product, but call it 1% collection fee. You could do that. I mean, you could create. So here is where all my products and services are. Products and services. So I created bookkeeping services a while ago, and then the tips. I can't remember if I saved that. Yep, here's tips. And so all these screens have, like I said, they have a baby gear. Here's the master gear, and here's the baby gear. And so when I come up here to my baby gear, I've got things turned on. Like if I don't need SKU, I could turn SKU off. But I do want to see my income accounts. So when I use bookkeeping services, I can see what income account it's hitting. Down here under my tips, I can see what income it's hitting. So this baby gear, I don't need expense accounts. I don't need, let's see, expense accounts, show more. Like I don't need the cost. I do want taxable turned on. I don't need quantity on hand. I don't need reorder point. And so you can set this master screen up so that you can look at it closely. Is what type of item did you set up? Is it a service? Is it an inventory? Is it a non-inventory? What type? And then the sales description. This is the wording that's going to pop up when you pop it onto the invoice. And then this is the income account that it's going to hit. And if you plugged in, like I plugged in, the bookkeeping services were $150 an hour. That's an hourly rate, but you don't have to have an hourly rate. For tip income, it popped in blank. And then we can tell whether they're flagged as taxable or non-taxable. So this is the kind of the way that you would want to set up your products and services, which are going to be under your list, under the master list, your products and services. Over here is where your chart of accounts is. There's usually lots of ways to get to the same spot, but on your chart of accounts, those are the two things that really drive QuickBooks, is the way you set up your chart of accounts and the way you set up your products and services. And so this is your chart of accounts. And so we already talked about the balance sheet accounts, and then you get into the P&L accounts. Okay. Let's go back over to bank transactions. Let's see if we got some more questions here. Taxable refers to sales tax, not income tax, right? That's correct. Taxable means sales tax. Tips are not taxable. For servers at restaurant, tips are taxable income. Yeah, probably so. They are. When I see a Christmas card, thank you card with cash in it because it is not taxable, do I also deposit categorized in QuickBooks? If somebody is sending you with cash, I would put that cash in my pocket and not deposit it into the business account. Is any difference in the tip and the birthday Christmas gift? No. It's just that, like, if she sent you a check for $100 and that invoice is only for $85, you need to bring that invoice up to $100, or either you're just going to have to record it some other way. There's just so many different options that it could possibly be. It's just common sense, but you do not want to leave that saying, hey, this person has a credit. She gave me an extra $15. So there's a credit on her account. So the next time that she buys something from me, I don't want to use that credit to pay off what she just bought from me. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of confusing. Let me go back to the bank transactions. And so the rules. And so I can see right here, there is again, it's the baby gear. And so I'm going to come up so that when I click on the baby gear, I can see the most. So when I click on the baby gear, I definitely want to see as many lines as possible. So I'm going to choose 300 to my page. And what that means is just that it will just roll as far as it can see. If you've set it for 300, if it was set for 10 lines, I would see only lines 1 through 10. And then I'd have to go to a second page and see lines 11 through 17. So you always want to, on your baby gear, you always want to set it to see the maximum lines that you can see. And also on your baby gear, and this is on the bank transaction screen, we're going to turn some things off and on. So I don't even use tags. I don't like tags. Maybe you're using tags, so I'm going to turn that off. But right here where it says show bank details, I want to see bank details as opposed to description. Description is artificial intelligence. I want to switch this to bank details. And that changes that wording to bank details. So I can see the bank detail. It's A1 rental. When this was on show off, I was seeing a name called A rental. But really, when I open that up, I can see the bank detail down here at the bottom. And the real vendor name is called A1 rental. So here, I don't want to see description. I want to go to that baby gear, and I want to switch this to bank details. I don't even like enable suggested categorization. I do show suggested rules. I do want to copy the bank detail to the memo. And I do want to turn my check numbers on. So basically, that is how you would want your baby gear set up. Let me show it to you again. Maybe you want to take a picture of that. You want to get it, it's the big enough, as many lines as possible. I like that, put 300. And I would just set it up just like that. Now, when you turn on grouping, this is a whole nother thing. So when I turn on grouping, it groups it by date. So these are the transactions in February that are waiting to come in. These are transactions in January, and these are the transactions in December. If I've turned on grouping and I click on bank detail, then it's going to group it by all the A1 Rentals, all the Books by Bessie, all the Bershon Insurance Agency, all the Chin's Gas. And so by whatever header I clicked on, that is how it's going to kind of group it. Okay. So if I click it back to date, it's going to group it like this. Okay. So I always go to the baby gear and get things turned on that are going to help you. So showing the bank details, copy the bank details to memo, so show suggested rules, that's fine. Okay. All right. So I'm going to turn off grouping for right now. And I'm going to show here, let's see, let me put it in date order. When I do date order, it's showing me the most current stuff at the top. If I click date again, it's flipping me and showing me the oldest thing. So let me sort it by bank detail again. And so on this A rental, I can see I paid $800 and then I paid $1,200. And then looks like they gave me a refund of $200. And so it looks like I rented some equipment here. And so I want to teach it a rule that every time, because I definitely do not want to add it with the vendor name missing and the category not correct. Uncategorized expense is not correct. So what I want to do is click on A1 rental. And remember, since I can see the bank detail down here. And so that is my vendor name. And I can just copy that right there. Control C, and I can come right here and paste it. And then I'm going to say add new A1 rental. That is going to be my vendor's name. Okay. So here's my vendor, A1 rental. I'm going to hit save. Under account, I don't want to put it in uncategorized expense. So I want to find an appropriate account for it. There is an account called uncategorized expense, but I would want to call this equipment rental. And so I'm looking to see, do I see equipment rental? And I do, which is a sub account of job expenses. If I come up a little bit higher, I can see job expenses. Under job expenses, I have a sub called cost of labor, and I have a sub called equipment rental. And then under cost of labor, I have a sub called installation and a sub called maintenance and repairs. You don't need to get near as complex as that. This is really making it so complex that you'll get lost. So I'm going to use equipment rental. Well, I thought I was. Equipment rental. Let me find it again. So job expenses, equipment rental. And I'm going to create a rule so that the next time that I go buy something from A1 Rental, it's going to remember that vendor name and it's going to remember that account. So when I click create a rule, I want to paste the A1 Rental. That is the name of the rule. It's a rule and it says, if you see money out, and I'm not going to limit it to just my 7890. I'm going to say, if you see it going out of any of my accounts, I don't care. Sometimes I might pay A1 rental using my MasterCard. And right here, I want to switch it from artificial intelligence to bank detail. So on my description, I'm going to change it to bank text. If you see money going out of any account, and the bank text contains, and I do want to put the exact bank detail that I saw, A1 rental. If the bank text contains A1 rental, I want you to call it an expense. I want you to put it in the category of job expenses, equipment rental, and I want to have a vendor name on there. So I am going to use the vendor name of A1 rental. I do not want you to auto add it. If you auto add is turned on, it doesn't stop on this bank feed screen. It just sends it straight on to the register. You want to slow everything down. So always turn A1 rental, always turn auto add off. So that's exactly, maybe you might want to take a picture of what that should look like. That's exactly the way it should look. There's the bank memo that's getting copied in. So when I hit save, I have created a rule and it's really fast. And so it applied the rule, but it didn't pick up my vendor name. It's just because it's so fast. And so I'm going to reload this page. So I'm going to click on it. When I reload this page, it should show me A1 rental and the right category. And so then I feel good about it. I didn't take the time to do the work. I didn't go to Plus New and I didn't record that I went to A1 rental. I'm letting my bank feed do that work. A lot of times you want to do the work. And so when the bank feed happens, it will just say, I see a match. You feel good about that. But sometimes, especially like debits, like you might want to set a rule up called Walmart. And Walmart, anytime you see Walmart coming out of any of these accounts, I want you to drop it in supplies. So A1 rental. So these two look good. Now this one right here, now this is money coming in. So it's like I had to go rent some equipment, but then I maybe took that rental equipment back and they gave me a deposit back. And so I usually don't set up rules for something like that, but I do need to get it categorized right. So if I click on this, I would want to get my payee right, which is going to be A1 rental. There it is. And I would want to put it to that same expense account because really, instead of me paying $2,000 for this rental equipment, I'm only paying $1,800. So I want to drop this back into that same expense account, which is job expenses and then equipment rental. And I can see equipment rental is a sub of job expenses. Job expenses, equipment rental. Okay. And so now this is right. And then I've got it right here. It's not reflected right here, but that is correct. So I'm going to hit add. So that sent that bound over. And I would want to add these two things also. But before I do that, I want to show you something else. So I'm going to come down here to Hicks Hardware. So also, this is where I went to Hicks Hardware and I charged $24.38. This is not correct. I would not want to call this uncategorized expense. So I need to correct that. So I click on it. My Hicks Hardware is right, but my uncategorized expense is wrong. So let me see if I have an account called job supplies. I have job materials, which is a sub of job expenses. That sounds good. Job materials. So now it looks right. So I can add it on. But before I would add it on, maybe I want to go ahead and create a rule again. So I can see the bank detail down here. So I'm going to just copy this bank detail, Control C, and then I'm going to create a rule. Again, I'm going to give it a rule and name. So I'm going to paste that Hicks Hardware. I'm not going to money out. If you see money going out of any of the accounts, and I also want to change it to bank text because I can see the bank text. If the bank text contains, and just to be safe, I'm going to paste it again. It doesn't matter about uppercase or lowercase. It's just really the spacing. If the bank text contains Hicks Hardware, I want you to call it an expense. I wanted you to put it under job expenses, job materials, with a vendor name, a payee name of Hicks Hardware, and I never want you to auto add. I'm going to hit save. So now that rule got applied. So once you start creating these rules, and right here's where my rules are. When I go to rules, those are the two rules that I have created. And if I see that either one of these rules has a problem, I can just go into my rules, edit my rule, and make a change. But those are the two rules that I've created so far, A1 Rental and Hicks Hardware. If A1 Rental, if you see that bank text, if you see this bank text. So go to your rules, and if yours does not say bank text, you want to edit each one of those rules and change it to bank text. Okay. So now if I go back to my bank transactions, if I come right here and say, show me all the rules that got applied. So it shows me the A1 Rentals and the Hicks Hardware. Then I can grab all three of them. So once you get a lot of rules created, every day you just go here. You can trust your rules because you've taken the time to set those up, and then you can accept. And so this 16 is going to drop down to 13 when I hit accept. When I hit accept, it drops down to 13. So that moved it out of for review to categorized. So all the ones we've moved from for review over to categorized. If something was wrong, I could undo them and send them back to for review. But it also moved them to categorized. But it also moved them all the way to the register with a C and a symbol. And so you can see the C for the 1,200 that I spent, the C for the 200 they gave me back, and here's the other C for the 800 I spent. So let me go run a P&L report. So I'm going to go to reports. I'm going to run a P&L by month. I'm going to get all dates. So I'm seeing everything, all dates. And so I'm going to come down here to, it was an expense account called equipment rental. And so you can see I spent 800 and I spent 1,000. And if I drill down or double click on that one number, I can actually see, yes, you paid 800. And then in January, you paid another 1,200, but then they gave you $200 back. So your total cost for equipment rental is $1,800. Hope that helped. Okay, let's see what kind of questions we got. We're about out of time, but I will stick around as long as you want to. Makes sense. Okay. So I'm sorry we don't really have a lot of time to just keep going over it, but I hope you got a starting point. It's really hard to if you want to drop me an email and ask me some simple question, I'll be glad to respond back to you. My email is jeff@qbxaccounting, jeff@qbxaccounting.com. If you want to drop me an email, or if you want to know something about getting a subscription or turning on Intuit payments where I can get you a discount, you just let me know and I will reach out to my Intuit rep and get that passed along to you. So any final questions? I think it looks like the chat has been the best thing for, thank you, Jill, for questions. But I hope that helped. I appreciate everybody attending today. The college does, I teach at 5 community colleges. So in February, I'll be teaching these same classes again. And so if you just go out there, you can find which college is probably doing it next. I teach it in Hickory. I teach in Shelby. I teach in Broad River Community College. Well, all right. I hope that helped you, and I look forward to talking to you again. Thank you very much. If anybody wants to raise their hand and ask a question, I'll be glad to talk some more. Shopify and QuickBooks, recommend Shopify and QuickBooks is yes, I do. Let me see who it is. No, that's not the one. Oh, if you'll drop me an email, I will find the one that I would recommend. It's a lady named Veronica Wasik. Veronicawasek. Veronica Wasik. She is the best in the business. Let me Google that. Veronica Wasik, bookkeeping. FiveMinuteBookkeeping.com. Veronica Wasik. She is a Shopify queen. If anybody has any questions, if you want to raise your hand, I will try to unmute you, or you can just send through the chat. Do you have time to quickly show how to reconcile? Yes. Okay, I'll be glad to show you that. Okay, so to reconcile, so that means if you go to your chart of accounts. Let's see here. And I'm going to view that register. So I'm looking at my main register. So you need to make sure that you've got C's and symbols. If you don't have C's and symbols, that means it's made it to your register, but not in the way that it should, because everything should have a C and a green symbol. And when we reconcile, all your C's will turn to R's. So the first thing you got to do is you got to figure out, like, why are these recorded? The only reason that they should be recorded, but they haven't fed through the bank transaction feed yet, would be if it just hasn't happened at the bank yet. But usually the next day it comes through the bank feeds. And so everything should have a C and a symbol. And so then you would just hit reconcile. Now, if everything comes through with a C and a symbol, immediately when you start reconciling, which is very different from desktop, is that you're going to plug in your beginning balance and your ending balance. Let's say I'm reconciling January the 31st. January the 31st, 0131. If I do tab, it knows the current year. I'm going to say, well, my bank statement says it's $3,000 at the end of January 31st. And when I hit start reconciling, if it's fed through, it's already going to have a check mark on it, that green symbol and the check mark. And so anything that's sitting here on your reconcile screen, that means that it's affecting your financial reports. And if there's anything sitting here and it shouldn't be here, then you need to correct that. But everything should have a green symbol and a check mark. And that check mark, and if I uncheck it, it changes this number. If I uncheck that, but if you've done everything right, everything that's fed through is already going to have a check mark on it, and your difference is going to be zero. You can see your beginning balance, your ending balance. You can see your deposits. You can see your payments. You compare those things with your bank statements to see if your deposits and your payments, which is off. Are you short on your deposits? Are you short on your payments? You can sort your deposits. You can sort your payments. You can say, just show me the deposits only. Just show me the payments only. So there's lots of ways to really look at everything. but you want to get everything right and that difference to be 0 and not have anything else listed out here that shouldn't be there. A local bookkeeper that you may recommend. Well, where are you located, Mary? If you need training, I do training, but Hendersonville. I don't know anybody in Hendersonville that's a QuickBooks Pro advisor. You can go to a website, and I'll show you that website, findaproadvisor.com. Whoops, wrong thing. Findaproadvisor.com. Okay. And so you put in your zip code. So I'm 28150. So I say find a pro advisor. And there I am. And so I'm the only one in my area. But if I expand my area, but say by 25 miles, some more people pop up. And so you're looking to see, are they experienced and what are they experienced in? You'd want to find somebody that's experienced in QuickBooks Online, which most everybody is now. And so like this person, they're not experienced in desktop or any of the other categories. So a lot of people are just QuickBooks Online only. She is in desktop and enterprise, but not online. So you just go through this list and find who you think might be your best match. So hopefully you like the way that I teach, and maybe you might want to spend some time with me. But anyway, I guess we'll wrap it up for today. I appreciate everybody hanging out with me this morning. We'll be doing this again real soon, and have a great day. Thank you very much.